Beach Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and we got some more Warhammer 40K commanders to talk about here. There's a bunch in this set, which is funny. This is actually, this isn't an actual set. This is 4 commander decks, as far as I can tell, from what I've heard. So it's not an actual set. It's just commander decks, and there is a bunch of legendary creatures, even though we just had an absolute ton in Dominaria and in Baldur's Gate before that. Which I will be making a video about right away. Let's look at a few of these new ones coming out here. So Celestine the Living Saint, 4 and a white, human warrior, 3/4 flying and lifelink. So this is just a human warrior, no weird creature types. Obviously there's tons of support for humans and warriors, in white even. At the beginning of your end step, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Wow. So obviously your commander has flying and lifelink and is a 3/4, so it's very easy for you to attack, get in for 3 damage, and then you can, at the beginning of your end step, return a 3 mana value creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you could just very easily, just swing with your commander. Obviously you're going to want more than that as far as life gain goes, but you could very easily just swing with your commander, get in for 3 damage. So I would probably put a fair amount of 3 mana value creatures in here, just good value creatures. Obviously, if you want to go, you probably want a few of those big shots as well, right? You want like I guess a Heliod's Intervention, X spells that gain lots of life. There's obviously a few of those. Beacon of Immortality will gain you a whole ton of life. That'll get back any creature you want. So you could put stuff like that. I don't know if you need to do that. I mean, how big is the creature? I mean, gaining life is good anyway, and so obviously you could do a bunch of the life gain stuff, Well Lost Dreams and all that good stuff. So all of the whenever you gain life stuff is going to work. I would probably go the value route with this more than anything. Instead of relying on that giant play where I cast the Beacon of Immortality and get back an Avacyn, but then I have to get the Avacyn into my graveyard. Now you're jumping through a lot of hoops. I don't know if I love that. You could do it. You could just throw an Avacyn in here because it's a good card in a mono white deck anyway. And then you already have Beacon of Immortality because that's a good card in a life gain deck. And then if that opportunity arises, great. I don't know if I would go discard. Like white's not great with the discard. I mean, obviously you have options, but I don't know if I would go down that road too much. I would probably do more of a value theme where I'm like, maybe I have a 3 mana creature that I can sacrifice and then get back out of the graveyard after I attack or something like that. That's because then you're getting more consistency. You want your trigger from your commander every turn. That's the big one for me. For me, I'm like, okay, every end step, I want to be getting something out of my graveyard. And if you're looking for that big play, it might not happen. This commander costs 5. It's kind of a lot. It's pretty good. It's interesting. You're doing life gain and graveyard recursion. We've never seen that combination before, so pretty interesting. All right, moving on. And we got Commissar. I think it's Commissar. Severina Raine. 1, a white and a black. So an Orzhov commander, human soldier. Again, lots of support there. 2/2. Loading from the front. Whenever Commissar Severina Raine attacks, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Wow. Okay. So first of all, again, this is one of the situations where I have to attack with my commander. So that can be problematic. This is a great ability because this is each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. You have to attack with other creatures, so you can't just attack with your commander. Your commander is just a vanilla 2/2 essentially. It doesn't have any evasion. So again, power matrix or something that is going to give your commander evasion or make it unblockable is going to be really important. Or just a dark steel plate, give it indestructible so you don't have to worry about it dying in combat. Dolmen Gate. Dolmen Gate's just a great fit in any deck where you're attacking a lot. So now you don't have to worry about your creatures dying in combat. And obviously, again, it's a soldier, so you could just do straight up soldier tribal with this. And then, or even human tribal with this actually. And there already is a couple of human, you have a couple, well, at least one for sure, General, what's his face? That is a white-black human tribal commander that you could put in this deck. So you could do human tribal or soldier tribal here. That would work because both of those are going to be a go wide strategy, so you take more advantage of that first ability. Also, though, you can pay 2, sacrifice another creature, you gain 2 life, and draw a card. Well, that's interesting. Drawing a card is always great on your commander, as I say all the time. So sacrifice a creature. Again, this plays into the go wide strategy of having lots of creatures. You're gaining life, so now you can do that. Drawing cards is always great, obviously. That's just a nice ability to have. I don't know if I would go too much into that ability. 2 mana. There's easier ways to sacrifice your creatures, and there's probably better commanders that are, better aristocrats commanders. Obviously you could throw, like a Zulaport Cutthroat in here, obviously, which is also a human, so that'll fit that theme. That's probably where I would go with this, is either human or soldier tribal. You could probably even do both, and just you have that really nice, can you imagine you attack with like 5 creatures, even if they're all 1/1s, all of your opponents are going to lose X life just from attacking. That's pretty good, right? And then, if any of them are going to die in combat, in response, you can just sacrifice them to gain 2 life and draw a card. So just leave all your mana open during combat. Pretty good. You're in the right colors here for doing this kind of stuff, I think. I think this would be a really interesting, and do we even have even though this doesn't seem like Soldier Tribal at all, I think this would make a great Soldier Tribal deck, and we don't have a white-black Soldier Tribal commander, obviously, so that would be interesting. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff in white for soldiers and humans. Black, though, I know there's a little bit of black. So there is Xanthrid Necromancer, which would be good. That'd be a good fit here because, if you're doing the human tribal thing, there's a little bit. That's probably where I would go. You definitely want to be in a go-wide strategy here, so I would go either with human or soldier tribal, or maybe both. All right, moving on to Anrakyr. Anrakyr the Traveller, 4 and a black legendary artifact creature. Again, with the artifact creatures in mono black. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch in here because that's what the Necrons are. And, I've learned so much about Warhammer 40K from doing these videos, and reading the comments. Anyway, this guy's a 4/4. Whenever Anrakyr the Traveller attacks, you may cast an artifact spell from your hand or graveyard by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Wow, that's pretty good. The attack trigger is not great. Really, that is the worst thing to have on your commander. Again, just like the last one, whenever you have a trigger on your commander at the beginning of the year, upkeep at the beginning of your end step, that kind of stuff you like, whenever you attack with your commander is probably the worst trigger for that kind of stuff, because it means, first of all, you likely will only get 1 trigger on your turn, which isn't great. You're not going to get this trigger more than once. There are no extra combats in mono black. And then on top of that, you have to be attacking with your commander all the time. Your commander is already susceptible to removal. As I've said about these legendary artifact creatures many times before already, they die really easy. And having it die in combat, again, not great. You're going to need as much evasion as you can because you have to attack with your commander here, right? Or, hey, here's an easy one. I attack with my commander. You may cast an artifact spell from your hand or graveyard by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Wait a minute. Is this at instant speed? Whenever they attack, you may cast an artifact spell from your hand. So that means you can do it right away, right? You don't have to wait. Yeah, the timing restrictions won't apply here. Yeah, because it's telling you that you can, whenever this attack is telling you can cast an artifact spell from your hand, that means you can do it immediately. You don't have to wait to your second main phase. If it's any normal artifact, you would have to do that. I was going to say you should put a Shimmer Mirror in here, which you might want to anyway, but I don't think you have to wait. You can do it right away. So now I can Darksteel Forge, again, another card that you probably want to include in this deck anyway. Now, when I attack with my commander the first time, I can just immediately pay 9 life. That's a lot, however. I put Darksteel Forge into play and I'm good to go, right? So the first time you attack with your commander, you can just immediately put that Hammer Nazan is a good one because it'll equip immediately as soon as it hits the battlefield. So you can do it in the middle of combat, so you don't have to worry about your commander dying. Obviously, Darksteel Plate, that's not going to work because you have to pay to equip it. Power Matrix will work because you can immediately tap it and give your commander flying before it's blocked. Darksteel Forge, there's ways that you can immediately do this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is, whenever it attacks, you may cast it. So you're doing it right away. This trigger will go on the stack, and the trigger is saying you can now cast an artifact spell from your hand or graveyard. Obviously, graveyard's great too. So it's letting you break timing restrictions here so you can do it during combat, which is going to be really great for saving your commander in combat. This is a really interesting one. And obviously people like the whole pay life instead of mana for stuff. Obviously Darksteel Forge being the big play here. Akroma's Memorial would be another great one, obviously, because it's going to give your commander all those abilities, right? What is it? Flying, First Strike, Trample, Protection from Red and Black. So that'll also work here. So that, I think, yeah, this one's, I'm really warming up to this now because it's very easy. There's lots of artifacts that are going to protect your commander, right? So when your commander attacks, you can immediately slap one of them down and then you don't have to worry about it, right? Yeah, this is an interesting one. Might be popular. All right, next up we have Gershon Starn Kellermorph. 1, a blue and a red Tyrannid human. I've been told it's pronounced, not Tyrannid. 3/2, ward 2. I love the ward on a commander. That's great. Having to pay 3 mana for swords. 3 auto stubs. Whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Gershon Starn Kellermorph deals 2 damage to that. Wow, that's super interesting. Whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage, that is super easy to build around. So whenever any source you control, right? And again, when it says whenever another source, that's everything. Enchantments, artifacts, creatures, spells, if I cast a spell. So now, oh man, this is so good. This is super good. Now if I cast a Tremor, for example, Tremor deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. All my creatures will take 1 damage, and there's lots of those that deal only damage to your opponent's creatures too. But I'll just use Tremor as the example here. I'm going to deal 1 damage to each creature. My commander will be fine, obviously. Then Gershon Starn Kellermorph deals 2 damage to that permanent or player. Oh man, that's so good. And your commander is dealing the damage here, so any lifelink effect is going to be fantastic. Death Touch is going to be good too. Like a Basilisk Collar is going to be fantastic, obviously, because now you just kill all of your opponent's creatures. Wait a minute, oh man, I have to go back. Whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, that's your stuff too. Oh man. Okay, this is getting complicated. Okay, maybe it's not as good as I originally thought. It's more fair. It's not as busted. This does include your stuff. Yeah, so you don't want a Tremor because this is going to kill all your stuff. In fact, he'll kill himself, right? Whenever another source if you cast a Tremor, whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to, yeah, this includes himself. So if you cast a Tremor, he's going to turn around and turn the gun on himself, right? He's going to deal 2 damage to himself. This doesn't say whenever another source you control deals 1 damage. Yeah, Tremor is a no-go in this deck. Yeah, you have to use the one, like, what is it, Blazing Volley maybe, that deals 1 damage to your opponent's creatures. There's lots of those. There's lots of those little mini board wipes that deal 1 damage to all your opponent's creatures, and it's going to turn them into 3 damage. So it's just going to make them a lot better. It's not super great, but it's still pretty good. And if you have a Basilisk Collar, so Death Touch would be good, because this is going to ensure that your commander will be killing all those creatures. Lifelink will be good because now you're going to gain a bunch of life. I mean, a Basilisk Collar is just a no-brainer in this deck, obviously, because your commander's throwing around damage. Also, though, like getting past that, there's so many possibilities here. You could very easily do a Pinger Tribal here. This would be a great Pinger Tribal commander because obviously Pingers, I mean, there are some that do more than 1 damage, but you wouldn't use those ones. You'd use all the ones that are doing 1 damage, and of course they're all blue and red. They're all blue and red, so they're all going to fit. And maybe that was the intention here. So now you ping a creature, and you could ping a player too. You could just ping a player with your pinger, and your commander will add another 2 damage. Basically, everything your pingers shoot, your commander's going to shoot it as well. Sort of like lasing the target or something for your commander. It's pretty neat. The flavor here is pretty neat as well. I like this guy a lot, man, and I do not get excited about Izzet commanders at all. I don't have an Izzet deck. Yeah, so this would be one that I could definitely go after because it's super cool. Also, though, you could do like Mana Barbs, right? That's another thing you could do, or Burning Earth, because that is a source you control that's dealing 1 damage. Now, again, it is going to affect you. I'm glad they did. When I first read this guy, I was thinking it wasn't affecting you, but it does. It's exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player. That includes you and your stuff. But that's another route you could go with this, where you could do, a Burning Earth mana barb sort of scenario where now every time someone taps a land for mana, they'll take a damage that is a source you control it dealing exactly 1 damage, and then you shoot your opponent for 2 more damage. Again, it works on you too, so you'd have to be careful there. Man, there's a lot you could do here. This is a super interesting commander. Another thing that you would have to be careful with, I love the design here. I actually really love that it affects you because you have to be super careful. If you have a land that deals damage, you can't put a City of Brass in this deck. If you put a City of Brass in this deck, City of Brass is a source you control that's dealing 1 damage to you. So every time you tap your City of Brass, your commander is going to turn around and give you a shot in the face. I love I don't know what the story is behind this guy, the flavor wise. I mean, obviously he likes shooting stuff. I love it. I love the flavor. I love the cleverness with the build around where you actually have to put some thought into it, right? You can't put a City of Brass in here. You have to be careful putting anything in this deck that is going to be dealing damage to you as well, right? So, wow, great commander. I might have to build this one myself. Super interesting. All right, last one today. Karn the Betrayer. Karn? We already have a Karn. I guess it has an H in there. It's probably pronounced differently. Is it Kaharn or something? Anyway, 3 in a red. Astartes Berserker, and I've been told that I'm pronouncing that correctly. 5/1. Wow, so there's a commander that's going to die very easily. Karn the Betrayer attacks or blocks each combat if able, and it's a 5/1. Yikes. So now again, we really want those Darksteel Plates, Dolmen Gates, Hammer of Nazan, etc., etc. There's got to be, there's got to be a trick, because that is just, your commander just dies way too easily. When you lose control of Karn the Betrayer, draw 2 cards. What? Oh boy, that is weird. Okay, I have to read the last ability because that must play into it. If damage would be dealt to Karn the Betrayer, prevent that damage. An opponent of your choice gains control of it. Okay, so I was going to start going down the road of, okay, how do we donate? Like, obviously, you can just donate your commander. Harmless offering. There's not a lot of ways to do it. You can't. The exchange control stuff is almost entirely in blue. You can't do it in mono red. Obviously, harmless offering, you can just donate your commander if you want to. Bazaar Trader is another one that you can just donate your commander if you just want to draw 2 cards without the attacking. Or without the damage, if you just want to donate your commander to draw 2 cards. It basically turns your commander into a Humble Defector, which you could also throw in this deck. You could throw, if you want to make a really fun, interesting political deck, Stark of Wrath is another great one that you pass that guy around the table. You could do the Dio-Chan sort of scenario here where, I built a deck like that was very political that way. So Dio-Chan is a red creature that is sort of political in a way, where you can do a very interesting mono red politics theme here. So obviously when your opponent gains control of it, now they're going to, again, it's just like a Humble Defector. You're passing it around the table and people are getting to draw off of it. You are, but so are your opponents. Obviously the most important card in this deck is going to be Homeward Path, right? Brand as well. Any of those effects, so that you can get your commander back whenever you want. Man, there's so much. This is why having a really deep card pool can be really important here. So first of all, yeah, Brand and Homeward Path are going to be important. Getting your having your Homeward Path in play for this commander is going to be crucial, because you are going to be donating your commander all the time, and so you're going to want to, you can instant speed. And I built an entire deck around this, by the way, which had Humble Defector and Stark of Wrath in it, because those guys are so fantastic if you can just Homeward Path, right? You donate them, you use their ability, you donate them, and then you immediately Homeward Path, get them back. So you get to draw 2 cards, or you get to destroy an artifact or creature. I think it is, yeah. And then you immediately get them back. Your opponents don't get them at all. Or Brand or whatever. So you can do all that stuff here. And I would put Humble Defector, Stark of Wrath in here. And then Brand, Homeward Path. That's all going to be really, really important. Tellemtor's Edict is another really interesting one that I would also put in a deck like that, because Tellemtor's Edict it's a great card. I mentioned it in my 10 cards videos. It's just 1 mana to exile a creature you own or control. So it's great in a scenario where you can steal an opponent's creature, because now you control your opponent's creature. 1 mana, you exile it, and then it has the draw card. So you get it's a cantrip as well. And also it's great in a scenario like this. I would absolutely have a Telemorph's Edict in this deck as well, because now if my opponent gains control of my commander and I don't want them to have it, it's a card that I own. 1 red mana, and exile that bad boy. It goes back to my command zone. I get to draw a card, but at least they don't get to draw 2 cards off of it. Also, Sanctum of Eternity. I'm coming up with all these ideas here. Sanctum of Eternity, because that, again, the reason why that card is so important is because, again, it is a commander you own, I believe is the wording. So if someone steals your commander, you can bounce it back to your hand, right? That is, again, you're going to need Expedition Map in this deck for sure, because what else looks for lands? Is it just Expedition Map in mono red? Because Homeward Path and Sanctum of Eternity are both going to be really important in this deck. Sanctum of Eternity, you can immediately attack with your commander. Well, you're going to have to, right? So you attack with your commander if damage would be dealt to it. So what can happen? The actual scenario that's playing out here is I attack with my commander. If it gets blocked, the damage is prevented and an opponent gains control of it, right? If they don't want to block it, they can just take 5 damage. That's pretty good too. You could even load up your commander. You could do a Tangarth type of a scenario here as well, where you, I'm just coming up with so many ideas. I might have to make this deck. You could do a Tangarth scenario where you load up your commander. You do a Voltron strategy, but because you're donating it all the time, right? Assault Suit. There you go. You just turned your commander into a Tangarth, right? Assault Suit is a great fit here, because now your commander, you will be donating it, but it can't attack you. Any of those effects, Vow of whatever, the red one, is it Vow of Lightning? Any of those effects that you can put on your commander so that it can't attack, you're essentially goading it. Goading will also work here. You can goad your own creatures. So now you can put the Vow of whatever on it so it can't attack you. The problem here, though, the big issue here is if damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage, and an opponent of your choice gains control of it. So once you donate to an opponent, it's entirely up to them who they give it to next. So if they attack with it, they can donate to another opponent. You might never get it back, right? That's where the Homeward Path, the Sanctum of Eternity, the brand, all that stuff is really, really important, because you have to have, if your opponents decide they want to screw you and never give your commander back, they'll just pass it around to each other. You want to be able to get it back, right? You need those scenarios in your deck. What an interesting commander. Wow, we had some couple real bangers there at the end. This is a really interesting build around. So interesting. I like it. It's really interesting. I don't know if this is a deck that I would necessarily want to play. I don't really love the politics angle too much, for the biggest reason that once you get down to 2 players, the politics game doesn't mean anything anymore. However, this is just so many interesting things you can do here. This is a really neat commander. I like it a lot. All right, that is it. That is all 5 really interesting commanders, especially those 2 at the end, Gershon and Karn or Kaharn. Really interesting. It's going to be fun to see how popular these guys are going to be. So far, I've been pretty impressed with a lot of these commanders. Nothing too busted. There's some pretty powerful ones. I think we've gotten pretty much all of the stuff already. Like I said, it's just 4 commander decks, so I think we've gotten it all. So I am going to do a top 10 commanders from this set. There's some really interesting ones, and I'm also going to do the best cards from this set, just the 99 cards, because I have seen some really awesome cards. Also, a lot of great reprints in this. You know, from a marketing standpoint, if they're trying to push this on us and get us to run out and buy it, they're doing a good job, because there is a lot of fantastic reprints, especially even just with alternate arts. And for me personally, I love alternate arts. So even if you're not a 40K fan, there's a lot of reasons to run out and buy these cards, I think. It's very interesting stuff in this set. So far, I'm pretty impressed. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.